we're playing a game of virtue signals versus I don't know, condemnation, guilt, trafficking. I don't know. Welcome to the comic book industry, though. Today, this is life now. This is how things are. It's funny because I sit back and I look at all this, and I'm like, it doesn't stress me out at all. I've never had anybody coming to me in back rooms or publicly, DMs, anything like that, telling me that I need to virtue signal about the current political climate, we'll say. Right? No one has said that to me because they already know exactly what I would say. It's funny because Instagram did this thing where yesterday, I guess, you had to post a black box instead of any content on Instagram to show your solidarity with Black Lives Matter. Okay. Now, I'm not really on Instagram, but my wife checks Instagram quite a bit, and I've always thought maybe like I want to dip my toe into Instagram and see if it's a good marketing platform for comics. I'm not sure if that's the case or not. I don't know. But she was telling me that a lot of influencers there were straight up bullied into either posting that black box, uh, making a statement on Black Lives Matter, or if they weren't, or if they made the wrong kind of statement, they would be publicly shamed. This is a game that you cannot win, and so therefore you should not play. Now, I imagine this kind of stuff happens on Twitter. It probably happens in the mainstream comic book industry because, as we've seen over the past week, how many comics professionals have come out in full throated support for Antifa, Erica Larson among them. It's amazing how many comic book pros are so extreme in their politics and so outwardly extreme in their politics in a very public way. I'm just shocked. I shouldn't be at this point, but it really is amazing when I take a step back and I think about how extreme these political positions are. So on Twitter, I guarantee you there are the same kinds of things. There are activists online and in the real world that will try to guilt you into doing something or saying something because they want to have control over you. And they want to make it look like there are more people on their side, so to speak. That's how they do it. They will go to social media, and if they can get everybody feeling guilty enough to post a black box, they can make it look like Black Lives Matter is this massive organization that you ought to be a part of because they're so darn big. That's how it works. Okay. Sean Gordon Murphy, uh, he posted, I don't even have his post. Basically, his post is here, and this has all been photoshopped. Maybe you saw Trump's photo op. Honestly, I didn't look into it terribly too much, but I know it has a lot of people really upset that Trump was standing in front of a church that had been, looted, and he was holding a Bible in the same position. Now here you go. Here's Sean Gordon Murphy. He's been photoshopped into this photo by this guy. Let's look at his repertoire here. He's a color enthusiast, no longer mint guy. DC to CLT. I don't know what that means. Spider Gwen, Spider Ham, Robotech, Unbeatable Squirrel Girl, Sea of Stars, Deadpool's Guide to Supervillains. All right, another comic book professional. Now, he says basically that Sean Gordon Murphy's virtue signaling, the safest of virtue signaling, and what is considered being moderate. Now, I'll say I'm a moderate, and you get enough crap being politically moderate, and I think it's okay to be politically moderate. But what you should not fall into is the game of trying to make the extremes happy, because they're always going to see you as a political moderate. Okay, they're not going to see you extreme enough. It's going to be a problem. And so Sean Gordon Murphy did some virtue signaling. He basically said he wants equality. I want more good cops, and I want bad cops to be held accountable when they break the law. Obviously, I think 99% of the country would agree with his sentiments here. He also said that looting is a bad idea. But because of this, this Rico guy, he says, "Get them megabucks, Sean." And it's about it is turned into essentially the fact that Sean Gordon Murphy has an Indiegogo campaign up right now. You know, to be fair, it was live before any of this went down. Okay. But that's a reason, you know, obviously, if you virtue signal, it's going to never be good enough. So here's an idea: just don't do it. Just opt out. Don't play the game. This weird social experiment. Uh, you cannot win. There's no prize to be won, honestly, because I guarantee you tomorrow there's going to be someone more righteous than Rico here that will be dumping on his virtue signaling. But if you're quiet, they're still gonna slide up in your DMs and tell you that you need to say something. You cannot win. All right, so he says, while you're here, give some money to Black Lives Matter. Here, get a hot T-shirt or backpack or bedspread or whatever to match our donation. All right, so now it has actually, he's got a link to his own thing that he's peddling, his own T-shirt to raise money for Black Lives Matter. There's Kelsey Shannon. There we go. And that about describes how it works. All right, so you want to see something really interesting? We're gonna pop over to Stan Lee. That's right. Talk about political extremism and co-opting and rewriting of history. That is often, you know, what has gone on here, especially in the comic book world. I hear so many times from comic book pros that I don't remember history well, and that they've got it right, they've got it correct here. Well, here's Stan Lee in a actually really civil conversation with somebody who was a political extremist at his time. It's this I forget his name, some guy that wrote for an underground newspaper called Rat, and he's very anti-Vietnam War. This was in 1968. Let's give it a listen.
The question, we're told we should, for instance, live with law and order, and nobody talks really about justice. And people say, well, success is this accumulation of objects, this house and 2 or 3 cars and a speedboat and that kind of thing, and never talk about daring, a man pushing himself to a boundary that he didn't dream he could make.
Let me play the devil's advocate for a minute. Let's take one of the points you've made. Let's take the law and order one, which we hear so much about these days. It's a funny thing, but we seem to have embarked upon a semantic expedition here in this country where it reminds me of Orwell's book, 1984, where suddenly words don't mean what they should mean.
Yeah, law and order means keep down black people.
Now,
sometimes
isn't it possible that law and order could mean law and order? People feel there is too much crime in the nation today, and they would like law and order. Why does this necessarily have to be a racist remark? I mean, possibly it may be in the mouths of some people, but I find I'm almost embarrassed to say, gee, I think we ought to have law and order. I find people look at me in a strange way.
How can you say law and order when you see on TV that need?
Anyway, great clip from Stan Lee. It's such a random hidden gem. But you know, comics used to be reasonable. I'm going to say that. They used to be reasonable. If you were here and you said this reasonable thing, essentially Sean Gordon Murphy said, I think there ought to be law and order. Basically. And why is that racist? Stanley did the same thing. He did this middle of the road, you know, just like basic understanding what most people would understand. The problem is you're not actually talking to normal people. You're talking to political extremists that have built a nest in the comic book industry. Okay? It is never going to be good enough for them, because whatever you say is looked at, or they will tell you that it really means something else. Just like Stanley was saying. All right, so let me know what you think about all this nonsense. It's hard to really get into comic book news without delving into all, you know, the riots, Black Lives Matter. Everybody's talking about it, including comic book professionals, and the comics industry's extremism is absolutely showing right now. I don't know what else to do about it other than look at it and shrug, you know, because we're moving on doing our own stuff. So thanks very much for watching. Really appreciate it. If you're interested in my videos, don't forget to like and subscribe. That really helps me out a lot, and it's free for you. And if you're interested in supporting a little bit more, you can check out my book, Downcast. It's on Indiegogo right now. And we're working on getting that print file ready. The goal is to have it sent off to the printer by the end of the week. Hopefully we'll hit that. I will let you know for sure. And lots of great future projects to come. So thanks very much, and I'll see you next time.